that folks knew how to switch it. All right, cool. Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome again to Top Inspire Databases for Assisting Students. And my name's Beth Yates. I'm the children's consultant at the Indiana State Library, in case you've never met me before. And I work in the professional development office. And this is me back in my days as a children's librarian at the Johnson County Public Library. So obviously this webinar is all about Inspire. And so in case you're not familiar with exactly what Inspire is or where it comes from, Inspire is a collection of online academic databases and other resources, other information resources that can be accessed for free by all Indiana residents. And it's provided by the Indiana State Library via funds distributed through the Indiana General Assembly and the Institute of Museum and Library Sciences, the IMLS. So Inspire contains all kinds of things. Not going to read this slide to you, but basically if it requires some sort of subscription, we have paid the subscription for you, and so you can access it for free. So today, what we're going to be covering is some of the databases that I think are most useful for people who are serving students, as the title of this webinar basically states. So if you are in a school or if you are in a public library helping with homework assignments, some of these are based on when I was in that public library working for 12 years, some of the most common questions and assignments that I had to deal with and that I often wished or actually did use Inspire to assist with. And other things are just some great databases that I want to make sure that I highlight for you. And then I do hope that there will be time for questions as we go through. If you have a specific question about that database, I will try to address it at that time. I know Laura Jones, who also works at the State Library with me in the professional development office. If there's something quick she can answer, I think she said she was willing to do that too. And yeah, let's do this. I got a lot of databases to share with you today. In fact, this is kind of a non-complete list of all of them. Those are the ones I definitely want to hit. And then I do hope to hit a couple of additional ones too, if we have time. Okay, so now is the part where I switch over to the live feed. Can you all see the Inspire website on your screen now, I hope? Yay, great. Okay. All right, so a couple of things to know. The first one is, I mentioned that Inspire is free to all Indiana residents. Well, how do we know if someone's an Indiana resident? I guess we don't technically know that, but we can tell whether they're in Indiana or not based on their IP address. So we have a big long list of IP addresses that we just allow to authenticate and say, yeah, sure, this person can get in. So if you ever have issues accessing anything in Inspire, it does occasionally happen, like an internet provider suddenly switches over and uses different IP addresses, or maybe you're on a cell phone and the cell phone provider has towers in other states, or, there's all kinds of things that could potentially happen. But if you ever have an issue, I want to point this out first and foremost, that if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, there is this email address here, inspire@library.in.gov, and that is the help desk email address. So if you ever have an issue with something like that, you just click on that and basically explain to them exactly what the issue is, and then they will get to you and help you as fast as possible. You can also go to the FAQs, also here at the bottom of the screen. And the very first question is, what do I do if I'm having geo IP recognition issues on the main Inspire page? And it kind of walks you through a couple of other options, but ultimately it says if those don't work, to email the inspire@library.in.gov help desk. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to just kind of demo for you real quick before we go any further is something that I think is super helpful, whether you're in a public library and you want to create a shortcut, or whether you are in a school, especially, and maybe you want to be able to provide a database for your students directly on your Canvas page or on your library website or something, so that they don't have to take the extra step to go through Inspire's homepage. And that is, if you go to this databases A to Z, and you go to whatever database it is that you want to use, and you right click on it, you can copy the link location, and then you can paste that link into your website, your Canvas, whatever. So let's just show if I then paste. Hopefully, yep, takes you right directly to that particular database. And as long as they are in Indiana with an IP address that can be verified, then they should have no problem just going straight there. Okay. All right, so the first database, any questions about any of that before we go on to a database? I guess I should stop for a second. Can a person be sent the link? Yeah, I believe they should. You just paste that link into an email. And that should work. Again, as long as they are in Indiana, they should be able to open it. Anything else? Okay. All right. If you think of something else, just let me know. Okay, so we are going to go to our first database. And to do that, we're going to scroll down basically to the bottom. And currently this is where these are housed. But Teaching Books and Book Connections is the first one that I want to highlight. Any of you already familiar with Teaching Books, I hope? Give me a little yeah in the chat if you are. Teaching Books and Book Connections are basically the same thing. They have all of the same content as far as the books and all the information provided about those books. The difference is the interfaces. So Teaching Books is geared on, I'll go ahead and open them both up so you can see them. But Teaching Books is geared towards schools, and Book Connections is geared towards public libraries. And so there's just a little bit of terminology differences, a few differences in terminology. So here is Book Connections. So for readers, for professionals, here for students, for educators, things like that. That's really kind of the major difference. Also, obviously, one of them's blue and one of them's red. Yeah. But we can even do a search. Let's look for the book Wonder. This one's in Teaching Books. And this one is in Book Connections. Let's open them up in both. So you can see, look, they are identical. The only difference is the color. Same number of total resources, all the same links and things on the sides. So in truth, it's kind of which one you prefer. And obviously, if you're in a public library, you would probably want to use the one that doesn't talk about educators, and vice versa. So let's use the Teaching Book ones right now. And I'm really just going to be showing you the kind of very basic type of searching that you can do and kind of the most popular information that you might find in here. Teaching Books actually has some really wonderful functionality, lots of different cool things you can do with it. And so I'm also going to be providing you with links to a couple of webinars that Teaching Books has done with us that really walk you through some of the more detailed and cool things that you can do with teaching books. But for now, one of the biggest things you can do is obviously look at different titles. And my favorite function is this book guides, activities, and lessons. So if you are literally teaching this book in class, or if you are running a book club, this is a really good place to go to find resources that are associated with it. The ones outlined in red are created by Teaching Books, and the others are sourced elsewhere. So you can see, like, this one is from a publisher. This one, let's see, the Texas Bluebonnet Award. They've pulled this resource that the Texas Bluebonnet Award created. Sometimes there are actually some YHBA resources in here. So lots of good stuff. There's also things like book trailers. So if you want to be able to kind of book talk, show some book trailers for your kids, you could do that. There's really wonderful author resources because they are able to interview authors, and then they actually provide the recordings. And then my favorite is the audio name pronunciation, because, as library staff, it's nice when we actually know how to say the author's names correctly. And this is a really wonderful resource that you're saying it right because the actual author themselves has told you how to say it. So let me see if I can, hopefully you can hear this. I'm pretty sure I selected share audio.
Hi, my name is RJ Palacio. That stands for Raquel Jaramillo Palacio, which is my given name. In Colombia, which is where my parents are from, the custom is to have two last names, your father's last name and your mother's maiden name. So Gabriel Garcia Marquez, for instance. Garcia was his father's last name and Marquez was his mother's. But since I grew up here in the United States, in New York City, I never did that. I only used my father's last name, so I was always just Raquel Jaramillo. But when it came time to publish Wonder, I thought it would be nice to honor my mother by using my full name, Raquel Jaramillo Palacio, the way it was meant to be. The only problem with that is that it seemed like a bit of a mouthful, so I shortened it to R.J. Palacio. I know my mom would have liked that. Hi, my name is...
There you go. So I love those author name pronunciations because you also learn a little bit about them sometimes. So very cool. And I saw we had a question, and thank you, Laura, for addressing it. I'll just say it out loud also for the sake of the recording. But Kate wanted to know, sometimes a patron needs to create a free account to use the database in Inspire. Is that ever the case with K through 12? So there's two different things. As Laura points out, there is, and I'll talk about this in a minute. In EBSCO, you can create an account in order to save different documents and things if you want to, but that's optional. You also might be talking about how occasionally, if someone is showing up as out of state or their IP address is not registering as being in Indiana, they do have to get a sign-in from the help desk, and that will let them log in. So that would be more of a geo-authentication issue. If they're having trouble getting logged in, they might have to create a free account. I would say that most of the time the schools don't have any problem with the connection. And if they do, they should reach out to the help desk, and they can make sure that all your IP addresses are entered in at the school and that you guys are good to go. And so they shouldn't have any issues in school. Then at home, though, it could be a different story. Obviously we can't control what happens in everybody's house. But yeah, you can assist them through the help desk to get that login if that ever does happen. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and add these links to Book Connections and the Teaching Books, both of those webinars that Teaching Books did for us. And those are also on a handout that I will be sending out to everyone who registered for this. I'll be sending out a little kind of guide that it gives you brief explanations of what each of the databases is and what you might use it for. And then also things like these webinar links that might be additionally helpful to you. Thank you, Laura, for the Inspire Help Desk email again. Okay, let's go back out. I'm going to close this. Go back to the home page. And I want to show you right now the search by subject, because this is another good place to start if you don't know the exact database that you want and you just kind of want some suggested databases for a particular topic. You can see there's lots of different subject headings. And at the bottom, there's student search K through 6 and 6 through 12. And there's more there if you do the read more. You can see there's tons in 6 through 12. So this can be a little overwhelming. But I want to highlight one database in particular that I think is really great for kind of general searching, general researching. If you have kids who are doing a basic research project or something like that, this can be a good place to start. So it's called Explora, and you can see there is a version for high school, middle school, and over here, elementary school. There's also an educator's edition. And the educator's edition just has some things that can be helpful, some tools and things for teachers. And one that I wanted to highlight here, because I think both public and school libraries could potentially utilize this, is this scavenger hunt. So there's one for primary, one for secondary. And if you went to library school, you probably did something kind of like this at one point, but basically it walks you through, it asks questions of the students, and it kind of has them locate different pieces of information throughout the Explora website. So it's just a good practice and a good way to get them familiar with it, especially, you know, upper high school, if they're embarking on some sort of larger research project and they need to be independent with it. It can be kind of a fun way to do it. And let's actually open up now high school. So the difference between elementary, high school, and middle school is really just that the results are kind of filtered. So the elementary school, obviously there's a lot less results. I believe they use Lexile as one of their factors for kind of figuring out what goes in which age group. But for now, let's do high schools. And you can see there are some research starters if somebody's totally desperate for something, they can't think of what they want to do research about. There are some down there, but let's do a test search. Let's look up Johnny Appleseed. And yeah, this came back with 772 results. Yeah, Susan, that's a great idea. Susan says that those scavenger hunts could be great for staff to use also. Absolutely. That sounds like a staff day activity to me. Okay. So Explora for high school, at the top, you'll get a topic overview, and you can see this one's from an encyclopedia. And then as you scroll down, lots of different types of resources. So there's an ebook, a reference, a periodical, a newspaper, a review, a biography, academic journal, with all these different little icons. So it's a little easier to see, but you can limit your search over here on the left, refine your results. Full text is the default, which is good. Victoria, the scavenger hunt is under for educators. Yeah. So if you want to refine your result, you can do it by year. You can select the source types. So if you only want biographies or encyclopedias, you could certainly do that. You could do it by Lexile, etc. Let's look at a sample entry. Let's see, what shall we do? Actually, let's do this topic overview. So one nice feature is that they do have this listen. So if you need this for accessibility in your classroom or for with your patrons, that is available. And then this is just an encyclopedia article. Over on the right-hand side, you've got some great tools, including Cite. So if you need the citation, you can grab that there. And then most of these are ways that you can save the document. So if you wanted to add it to a folder, it would be added to this folder here. In fact, we can do that. And so if I went to this folder, everything that I was during my current login that I saved to that before I leave Explora would stay in the folder and I could go back to it, but they will be dumped from the folder as soon as you close Explora. And so this is what Laura was talking about earlier. If you go to sign in, you can actually create an EBSCO account. EBSCO is the provider of many of these databases. And if you have an EBSCO account and you're signed in, then it will save all of those documents. And if you log in again, you can go back to them and access them that way. And to sign in, it's just a free account. If you click on sign in, you can use Google or you can sign up for an account if you don't have one already. So again, that's not totally necessary at all, but that is something that if you're planning on doing a lot of research or your patron is, they might want to sign in. Otherwise, you can print, email, save it to your computer or to I almost said a disk, a flash drive, showing my age. You can grab a permalink for this one too. So if you wanted to grab the permalink and again, put it in maybe a Canvas for your classroom or a website or something, you potentially could, an email. So yeah, and this one is only available in HTML full text, but sometimes they're also available in PDF. So you can see this ebook is actually a PDF, and sometimes it's both. So we got the full color here. Making sure I'm not missing any questions. Okay. I did also want to highlight another database called ReadIt. And ReadIt is designed for English language learners, ELL. The articles are a little shorter and the vocabulary is a bit easier, but it's another option for research. If you go to databases A to Z for this one, and then you scroll down to the R's, apologies for the fast scroll. There it is. You can select ReadIt. And you can see it looks very much like the other Explora database. So let's do the same search here. And so you can see you only get 2 results then, and they are one's from Spider and one's from Skipping Stones magazine. And so it's a much shorter article. Could potentially be good for your younger students as well. Okay. Any questions about Explora? I know I went through it pretty fast. I will say once you understand the way that Explora, that database is set up and how the results look, a lot of EBSCO databases look very similar. Is Explora basically an encyclopedia? I would say not exactly, Victoria, because it contains all kinds of, it contains some encyclopedia articles, but it also contains magazine articles and ebooks and everything. It's really kind of a, do they call them federated search engine? It's like a Google, but for the databases in some ways, because it will search a lot of the different databases and pull back things that are kind of generally appropriate for that age level. Let me see. Yeah, I like a consolidator. Yeah, kind of consolidates it. Okay, let's go to another one of my favorites. I don't know about you all. but I used to get a lot of questions from kids who were doing biography assignments. And a lot of times they wanted people who we didn't have books about. It could be somebody who was just a little less well known. It could be somebody who was really newly popular or famous. And so I would sometimes have to go to Biography Reference Center, and I would have a little bit more luck finding that person there, because our biography collection was extensive, but it still wasn't extensive enough for some of the interests of some of the kids that we saw. So Biography Reference Center, I just went from the A to Z, databases A to Z list, and selected Biography Reference Center. And you can look by genre. If you don't really know who you're looking for, there's also this browsable photo list. But you can also search, of course. Let's look up Madam C.J. Walker. And actually, you can search last name first or first name last. But we'll do it this way first. So Madam C.J. Walker, a Hoosier. And you can see there are 4 different resources with biographies about her. Here's one, Women Inventors and Their Discoveries. So we'll click on that. And this is also, you know, sometimes you'll get kids who say, no, my teacher said I have to bring a book. And so you can show this actually does come from a book. It was originally on page 50 through 65 of this book, Women Inventors and Their Discoveries. And these are just scanned articles from encyclopedias, from books, from other things. I know, right, Kathy? That's always the struggle, trying to explain exactly what a database is. But you have the ability to do a lot of the same things over here, print, email, save, things like that. And you can, of course, again, sign in and put it in a folder if you really want to, but you don't have to because you have these other options too. Madam C.J. Walker is a Hoosier. Yeah, she's from Indiana. Thanks, Laura. Sherry. And so, you know, I'm not going to say every Hoosier is necessarily in here, but definitely this is a good resource to some of those more obscure Hoosiers that maybe you don't have a book about. See if they're in here, because this is a little bit more expansive than what we can keep on our shelves, if that makes sense. Any other questions about Biography Reference Center? Right, Sherry, I totally feel you. We had that assignment too, and it was always a struggle. And so I would often have to go to Biography Reference Center to find some of them. Another place, actually, let's compare. Let's do a search and compare the results here in Biography Reference Center versus Explora, because that would be the other place that I would probably send people to look for biographies. Let's look at Explora for high schools again, and let's look at Madam C.J. Walker there as well. Let's see what we get back. So here we have 206 results. And so one of the reasons is I believe Netflix has done or is doing a series on Madam C.J. Walker. And so you'll see if you look over here on the results that 28 of these results are reviews, probably of the TV show. So this is a good example of when it might be the right thing to do to limit your results. So if I just select the biographies, you'll see again, we have 4. But they are not the same 4. Some of them might have some overlap. Yeah, Women Inventors and Their Discoveries, and this Monkey Shines on Great Inventors. Both of those were in this list, but there are additional ones here. So yeah, exactly, Kelly. Kelly points out many Hoosiers don't have published biographies, so this is helpful. Kate says, is there any way to include Hoosier or Indiana in the search? That's a good question. Let's try it. I mean, I'm sure you could, but let's see. Yeah. I mean, how many did that come back? Just 5. So that only brought 5 when I searched for Hoosier, but we did get a few who are definitely Hoosiers. See if Indiana brings back more. Oh, it wants to search for Robert, Indiana. Okay, there we get 772. So again, you'd probably want to double check these to make sure they're actually, and it's not just some random mention of the word Indiana in their article. But, you know, this is a great starting place. Lots and lots of folks that I've not heard of. So, although I did just see Babyface. So, okay. Any other questions about this one? Okay. Well, if you do, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll move on to our next one. I am still in the databases A to Z section, and now we are going to talk about points of view reference center. So going down to the P's. I'm going to go too fast, so I make you all dizzy. Okay, points of view reference center is a good one. Oh, Susan, we can talk about that in a minute. Sorry. Points of view reference center is a great database for if you have students who have to write like an argument paper of some sort, where they have to take a stance on an issue and they have to research it and then write about it. This is a nice one. If you go down here to this browse by category, you can search for anything, but this browse by category contains a lot of the most popular controversial topics. So for instance, let's go to banning books. That's one near and dear to all of our hearts, I imagine. So you can see it starts out with an overview of the topic, kind of gives a little bit of basic information about the quote unquote controversy. And again, you have this listen function if you need it for accessibility. And then over here on the right, you've got the point and the counterpoint. So it kind of walks through the two major arguments for either side of this. Yes, great for speech and debate students. Thank you, Kelly. That's an excellent use for this. So you can get, again, you know, obviously you would want to encourage them not to steal these arguments word for word necessarily. Obviously that's plagiarism, but if they are struggling or if they just need a place to get started so that they can understand more fully what the general argument is for one side or the other of a certain issue, this is a good database. And then I also like this ponder this at the bottom, where it kind of prompts them to ask questions about what they just read. So that is the basics of points of view. Let's go back to the question that Susan had. What's the difference between this biography reference center and the bio database above it on the list? And I'm going to be completely honest with you and just say that biography reference center is the one that I personally go to. And so I'm not as familiar with biography reference bank, but let's take a look. So I'd say the biggest difference is the interface is not as pleasing. It's not as user-friendly in my opinion. It's very plain, but we can try it. Let's see what happens if we do that same search for CJ Walker, Madam CJ Walker. So this is a very similar search to the Explorer, but obviously it limited the results because we only have 36 results. Over here, 6 reviews, 18 books, 10 magazines, 5 biographies. Let's see what the biographies are. American history, Fortune, African-American women. Oh, those are not actually about CJ Walker specifically. Oh, Yeah, this one is. Oh, that's her. Yes, because that's her real name. So a few of them are. So yeah, so definitely thank you for asking about that, Susan, because this is a case where, you know, you might be comfortable with something, try something else because you might get different results. So this brings back additional results. All right. Any more questions about biographies or points of view? And it is 10:40, so we still have a little more time for me to show you a couple other things. Okay. I think the next thing I'd like to show you is publication title search for newspapers and magazines, because there was a question on the ISLE listserv a few weeks ago about finding like recent editions of like local newspapers like the Indy Star, Chicago Tribune, and being able to get access to those without having to pay for them. And well, basically the main way that I am familiar with to get access to those is by using publication title search. So let's look up Indianapolis Star, and I'm just doing this one in this general search bar at the top of the Inspire homepage. And it does bring back some articles from the Indianapolis Star, but here in just a second, it pops up this full text access, and then it shows you there's 3 different options, 3 different places where you can try to find the most current database. Today is the 8th, so you can see that if you go into this McClatchy Tribune collection, you can actually see them through 2 days ago. And later today, this will probably update to yesterday's article. So let's just click on this and see what happens. So it brings up the record, and on the right-hand side, you'll see all issues and articles, and then you can just expand these. And then there's the September 6th issue. Now, this is obviously not the same as pulling out a paper newspaper and flipping through it, but it has some of the more popular articles from that newspaper from that day. Let's look at a different version of it. I'm going to show you another way you can access it. So publication title search is also at the top of this older version of Inspire. So let's see what happens when we search for it this way. So same 3 things, just in case it doesn't pop up for you. Let's look at Points of View Reference Center. Same thing. Oh, and now this one does have yesterday's available. Sometimes this is trial and error to find the ones with the articles that you want, or if you just want to see current events. You know, sometimes high school students especially will have current event assignments. And so again, a selection of the articles from the newspaper. You can also look up magazines. So this one is maybe not one that your students are going to be looking for, but I like to use it as an example because I think it's just kind of cool that we have full access to this. If anyone ever likes to read Consumer Reports for personal reasons, we do have, oops, I need to do that. I'm going to do this. Full text and master file complete. We click on that. Then you can go, this is the most recent October 2021 of Consumer Reports. And it lists out the different articles, but if you click on one and you go to the PDF full text, sorry, then you can actually just page through this like you're reading the magazine. You can navigate down here and here. And this is true of a lot of different magazines, Time, People, whatever you or your students might be looking for. So, all right. Any questions about that one? Okay, well then let's go on to Learning Express. Can you show us how you got to magazines again? Sure. So is there a particular magazine you want me to look up? Okay, let's look up Time Magazine. So you can search for it here on the home page. There we go. And so this one just pops up with Time and then search within publication. Let's see if we click on Time, full text access. Okay. And then you've got different options. So what you just have to look for is, you know, these all say to present. So you could probably select any of these. This one, master file complete, often has pretty good back issues. Like it's usually pretty thorough with all of the articles that it offers. So I just randomly selected that one. And over here on the right, all issues and articles 2021. And then looks like September 13th is the most recent one that this one offers. The other way that you can access magazines is if you're in a search results page and you go to publication title search, that is another way to search for it. But you should be able to search for it from that main page. Any other questions about that? Okay. It's 10:50 or 10:46. So I do want to show you one more thing. Learning Express Library. At least one more thing. We don't have a shortcut. Oh yeah, we do have a shortcut. Here it is. So this ACT, SAT, test preparation and more is one way that you can get to the Learning Express Library. You can also get to it, of course, through databases A to Z. Either way, you can get to this one. We'll just do it this way. And Learning Express Library is where you will find a lot of test prep, both the guides as well as like practice tests and things like that. So for instance, if you've got folks who need to take the GRE, there's, or GED, I'm sorry, the GRE, the GED, that is here. College admission, so all of the big tests are here. School center, I believe these are, there's just some kind of basic like math and English tests, I believe. College students, so placement exams, things like that. And then there's also some adult core skills if you've got some, for instance, ELL or ESL patrons, you could potentially help them with that. You do have to, let me show you an example. You do have to log in or create a free account in order to actually use any of these. But let's see, you can either do it up here or as you're going into it, it'll prompt you. So say I want to take the reading practice test. So there's a few different options, and before you can do it, you have to sign in or register. And to register, you just new user, register. And again, it's free account, basic information. If you log in, then you can start whatever tests you would like to start. See if it will do it quickly or if my internet is going to be slow. There you go. So kind of gives you some basic information about it, and then you can start the test. Any questions about that one? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Well, the other things that I can show you, kind of a cool database is Indiana Memory. This one is a project that the Indiana State Library assists with in scanning basically collections. Other libraries do it too. You might, maybe your library scans these for your own collection. But it's gathers together a lot of like primary resources, photos, letters, just historical documents from different counties around the state. Oh, one thing I'll point out here is teacher resources at the bottom, because it has some nice online tutorials, best practices for using primary sources, tools for teaching with primary sources. So do check that out if you feel like you want to know more about using primary sources. But something neat to explore is this collections across Indiana. So it starts out with statewide collections, but you can select any county, so including the county in which you live. So I grew up in Park County. So if I select Park County, it shows me that it looks like probably the Community Foundation maybe, and the Park County Public Library both have collections of scanned items that I can go through and browse. I believe you can search also, but obviously this is all very, it's kind of, if you have an interest in like oh my gosh, genealogy, I almost said geology, genealogy. This can be a really interesting resource to kind of poke through. Let me see, for instance, here's somebody's family. And then it gives a little description and some basic information about it. Where could you find how to type articles, like how to read research? Sorry, Detra. So where could you find how to type articles, like how to read a research article paper? I'm not, how to find. Oh, how to find a research article paper? Oh, find articles. I see. Where could you find how to find articles, like how to read a research article or paper? You know, that is a really good question. And Laura, if you have any thoughts, chime in. So basically, you would want instruction for the student on how to read a research article or paper. Is that what you're looking on how to do? Okay. Kara says maybe Learning Express, perhaps some of the EBSCO tutorials. Yeah, I mean, we can try. How to read a research article. Research guide, finding articles you can read. So I just did a general search. This talks about how you find articles. If an article is hard to read, what kind of help can I get? So yeah, probably just some general searches. But if you, how to study articles, Kara says. Yeah, I feel like there's probably lots of different places that you could find that kind of information. And I can look more into that potentially if you would like me to, Detra. I'm writing down your name. And I will get back to you on that. Reading critically. Yeah, thank you, Kate. That's a great. And can you give me some information, Detra, here? You can email me and give me more information about your situation and who you're looking for these articles for. Is it for high school students or there's my email address. Okay. All right, it's 10:54. I have one more thing I'm going to show you really, really quick. And that is, we do have some, we have an EBSCO ebook database where you can actually find, oh my gosh, alphabet, there we go. Let's just look at the general ebook collection. Now you're not going to find lots of the most popular books here. A lot of these will come up in other general searches if you're doing research. So like when I looked up Johnny Appleseed, one of these books popped up as one of the results. But just in case you want to explore it a little bit more, it does exist. And you can open these up as PDFs on your computer. To download them though, I'm going to direct you to the help that's in the top right corner here of this website. And then if you go to the left-hand side and you go to ebooks and audiobooks and go to the ebook user guide, you can, there's tutorials on how to look for things. But then down here a little bit further, how to download a book. There are instructions on how to download an ebook on a mobile device, including some of the different versions of phones that you might need to look up apps on. So I know that that is a very quick and dirty overview, but in the handout that I'm going to be sending you, there is information on how to access this. Like I've linked this for you. Let's see. Oh, Laura, yay. Laura says, EBSCO has tutorials for how to search Explora and all others, which can be found here. Scroll down to reference center tutorials to find them. And I assume that in those tutorials, it probably gives some basic information on how to read research articles. Yay, Laura. Okay. All right, everybody, it's 10:57, so we're going to wrap it up. But does anyone have any questions that I have not answered? And then the other thing I want to make sure I do is give you this LEU form. If you need an LEU, a library education unit, and actually it's a TLEU. It's a TLEU. You can go to this form, fill it out, name, email, and I will send those out to you probably tomorrow. So just if you need it, make sure you do that. If not, you can certainly also email me, but usually, there it is. My email address is not up there. Put my email address in here again. There we go. Yay, Susan. I know, right? Honestly, sometimes it's overwhelming just how much stuff there is in Inspire. And I know that that actually stops some people from using it. So I hope that I've been able to at least show you a few of the ones that are, in my opinion, the most useful. I know that obviously every library, every school is a little bit different and their needs are a little bit different. You can also always reach out to me or anyone else at the Indiana State Library in the professional development office, especially to help with this. Michelle, so I will send it to you it will be a TLEU when you get the certificate, but our understanding has always been that the education department recognizes those as PGPs also. Put that link in there one more time. Yay, Kelly. I know with my own kids, sometimes I talk to their teachers because I see them doing research projects and I'm like, you guys should all be using this. So any little bit that you school folks can do to spread the word to your colleagues is appreciated. And if you ever want me or someone else to do like a training for your school, we'd be more than happy to do it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.